Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom, and these are my raw narratives. We're going to jump right back into the Proudfoots impromptu interview with Smiley. This is a two-part, so if you haven't watched the first episode, please go back and watch the first part. One of a bit of a housekeeping issue that I wanted to take care of right off the bat is that in the last episode, I actually misquoted Maya Angelou, and I'm pretty embarrassed about it. I think it was because I was thinking of what I said in the Proudfoots last video about them showing their true colors, and I mixed up the quote with her words and my own. So, what Maya said is that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And with that, we probably should have believed the Proudfoots on the first interview. Where we left off in the interview is with Chris saying that he would never put his hands on a woman and that he taught Sebastian never to put his hands on a woman either. I decided to start peppering in an interview with Nina Gomez herself, Chris's fourth wife. The interview where she tells her story, it's about 2 hours long, so I wanted to pepper in some of it here and there. We're going to talk about the rest of it in a future episode. So guys, Nina's story is extremely difficult to listen to, especially if you've ever been in a situation like hers. So it's not only triggering, but it's also really re-traumatizing for victims of and survivors of domestic violence and their children who are often abused as well. I think it's super important to listen to what Nina has to say, especially since Chris has brought her up several times in this interview alone. Also, I want to point out that there is another reason that he is upset with JLR, this is the reason because JLR dug up a lot of information on Nina and was sharing it. And I'm glad he did. And I'm glad that Trevor had the kindness and compassion to give her a platform to share her story and to allow her to take the stage. All right, let's watch.
Did Sebastian have tantrums at all? And
When
this
he
is
was,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
he's a kid. I mean, it's even when I came in the picture. I mean, his tantrums were pretty bad.
mm,
Um, I mean, to the point. I mean, he. So I'm not. I'm not dragging Seth, his mom, his sister, my wife. I'm not dragging people through the mud. So what is in the past is the past, and that really needs to die. And I'm saying that for everybody to hear, to include all parties involved with this situation. The past is a past that needs to die. Let it be. But
they
at
keep
the
saying
same
who's
time,
Rachel. So they keep saying who's Rachel. So you want to answer that before you tell them to let the
yes,
past
yes.
die?
Okay. So I got no problem. Rachel
That,
is my
that
third.
intrigued me. I didn't know about Rachel. So
No, no, no. So here, let me. I'll make this easy for you. So I've been married 5 times. I'm on my fifth wife, and she's going to say you're final. So let me make that clear. She's probably going to yell at me later that I didn't say final. Um, but I've been married 5 times. Okay. First time, her name was Vanessa. Second time, her name was Stephanie. Third time, her name is Rachel. Fourth time, her name is Nina. And I'll
okay.
gladly answer any questions in any of my marriage.
Thank you for having me, Trevor. So, my name is Nina Gomez. I am Faith Proudfoot's mother. Christopher Proudfoot is Faith's father, biologically. I'm here to tell my story of what happened to myself and to my children. I live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I have 3 amazing children. I met Christopher back when I was 35 years old. I wish I could take it back. I started talking to him. He was stationed out in San Diego. He made a couple of trips out here, asked me to marry him. I made the mistake by saying I do. So we got married. Eventually, we moved to San Diego. So we packed up after we said I do. I don't remember the exact date when I got married to Christopher, and maybe that's a good thing. We moved into the naval housing out there. And my son, Noah, was 3 at the time, and my oldest was about 7 years old. I thought everything was great in the beginning, and I started seeing bits and pieces of how Christopher really was. It just started seeing like Christopher changed like night and day. It was awkward. I felt really uncomfortable. After a while, we would argue about just the smallest things. A lot of it also had to do with how he disciplined my children.
Out of the 4 ex-wives, 3 of them to this day, I can actually pick up the phone, call, and we can have conversations. That's how good it is.
Okay.
My 4th ex-wife, which is the one I have with my daughter, sometimes we can have cordial conversations, sometimes we cannot. I will make that positive, and leave that there. That's why we go to court.
So what is the story of Rachel?
The story of Rachel.
Maybe? I don't know.
No,
I'm just
no. I have one biological child in this world. One. That was my 4th wife. The story with Rachel is real simple. We met. We were all friends. We moved we shared an apartment together. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And somehow or another, we wound up starting a relationship. Like, things just happened. I mean, whatever. So we got married. And Rachel took a job where she was working down in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as a civilian. And while she was down in Guantanamo Bay, I guess promiscuity got the best of her, and she decided to be unfaithful. We ended that relationship. She went back to Cuba. I packed up the house. I put all her stuff in a storage unit. Gave one of her friends that lived in the area the key. Told her the combo. Set up the payment plan for her. Everything like that. As far as I know, she lives, I think it's in New Orleans now. And I think she just had a 2nd child. So she's got a little boy and I think a little girl now.
Were you part of any the stepchildren's lives?
Yes. My 4th wife, Nina, she has 2 children. Those children's names, don't even ask them. I'm not telling you because
No.
I don't want people digging into that. They don't need to be. Those kids are not being dragged into that.
Yeah.
Yes, I was very much involved during the marriage. Well, her and I were together with the kids' lives. It was a rough marriage. I mean, from the word go, Nina and I both knew we probably should have never got married, but we did. But I mean, still to this day, like I said, when things are good, I don't have a problem talking with the other 2 kids at all. Occasionally I see them in FaceTime videos when I'm talking with my daughter.
Yeah.
But it's not. They're good kids. They really are.
I didn't want him talking ugly to them, hurting their feelings. I remember one point in time where Christopher spanked my son really hard, and I got very upset with him, and I said, you can't do that to my son. I said, he's 3, he's a baby still. Like, you can't just do whatever you want. And he got upset, and he's like, well, he needs to learn. He needs to man up. He's a man. I said, he's 3. He's 3. And as time went on, I could see him getting more aggressive and more aggressive. And I stood up for my kids all the time. I didn't like how he talked to them, how he wanted them to stand in the corner all the time, and I didn't like that. I ended up eventually getting pregnant with Faith. I remember telling him that I was pregnant, and he wasn't happy about it. So I called my parents back home here in Albuquerque, and I told them the situation. And I said, well, Christopher wants me to get an abortion with Faith. And my parents said, no, you're not. And I said, I'm not. So I know he was very upset about me keeping Faith. We weren't getting along, and we were just like newlyweds, and that should have never happened. But I saw things, like I said, that were just, it wasn't right about him. So I moved home, and I did my whole pregnancy by myself. And at the time, Faith started moving. Like I could start, I felt her moving around in my stomach. And I told Christopher, I said, look, I said, put your hand on my stomach. I said, can you feel her move? He said, no. I didn't get that support that I needed. So we had a conversation my mom brought up between Christopher, myself, and her. And she had said, do you not want Faith? Like, do you not want this baby? And Christopher stated to my mom he wasn't happy. And he said, what if one of them dies? What if Faith dies or Nina dies on the table, or when she's having this baby? Like, my mom said, don't talk like that. Like, why are you talking like that? They're still here. So we left again after a couple days. We came home to Albuquerque, and still I tried working it out where we were at, but it just wasn't working. I wanted out. And I had Faith on my own. For call the hospital, I told him on June 1st that I got admitted into the hospital. And Faith arrived like at June 2nd, like about 3 or 4 in the morning. And he kept calling the hospital and saying that my wife is in labor, she's there. But Christopher was just so rude and hateful, and he wasn't even there. So then he arrived a couple days later after I had Faith. And he was, the doctors and the nurses there were on high alert due to the fact that they heard Christopher over the phone on how he was being disrespectful to the nurses that were on call that night, as I was waiting to have her. And I asked that they not give him any more information. So he arrived. I had Faith. He arrived a couple days later, like I said. And you could just tell the look on his face, like he wasn't happy at all. Like, didn't say, hey, you did a good job. Didn't say, I'm so happy that you brought my daughter into this world. Like, nothing. And I remember my sister was holding Faith, and she had to ask Chris, do you want to hold her? He said, I guess. She handed her over to Chris. And He stayed there with me for a couple more days because I had a C-section. On one of the occasions, I can't recall what was happening, but he was raising his voice and he was talking to me very disrespectful in front of one of the nurses. And she had told him, look, she just brought life into this world. She just got major surgery and you're yelling at her, and I have a problem with that. She said, if you continue to do this, I'm going to have to tell social services to come down here, and I'm also going to have to ask you to leave the hospital and not return. So at that point in time, he kind of calmed down after he heard that. But unfortunately, that didn't last very long. He continued to do that. So social services at the hospital was told to come down, and he was pretty much, she said, you can't do that here. And she was really concerned for my well-being at the time, and also Faith's, because, here is Christopher, dictating and telling me what I can and can't do, and telling the nurses to do their job correctly and all these other things, and raising his voice at me. And, so they had to step in. And so she said, this is it. Like, you're going to have to leave the premises. And, and he got a little upset, and he's like, no, I'm going to change. I'm going to be good. So, they said, okay, but we're watching you. We're watching you. So he rented a room at Kirtland Air Force Base, and they have like lodging there, which is like a house, old base housing. And we ended up getting one of those. And we stayed there for a while. I remember one night in particular where we all had went out and got something to eat to bring it back to the room. I had went into the restroom, I believe that's where I was at, and Faith was in her car seat, and my oldest daughter was in the living room with my son and Christopher. Well, anyways, I guess I wasn't moving fast enough for Christopher, but the baby started crying. Faith started crying. And, she's crying, and I'm trying to get to her as fast as I can. And when she was in the car seat, my oldest daughter at the time witnessed this with my 3-year-old son. When she was in the car seat, he ended up hitting the car seat against the wall. And he's getting upset because she's crying. And then when she was in her car seat, there was a coffee table right there, and he ended up tossing her on the coffee table with the car seat because he was so irate that she was crying. And I said, hey, what's your problem? I said, what are you doing? Like, she's a baby. She's going to cry. I wish I would have just... I wish I would have never met him. I'm sorry. I should have left a long time ago. Because no children ever deserve this. My kids didn't. He left again to San Diego. A couple of days went by. Then all of a sudden he's like, well, why don't you move to Hendersonville? I was like, why though? In my head. And I knew it was a bad idea. I just knew it. I knew it. because our marriage was on the rocks. I wasn't happy. He wasn't a good father figure to my children. I don't know why I said yes. And one of my neighbors had told me in San Diego, they had warned me. They had said, Nina, be careful because Christopher is coming up with a plan with his mother. And they're planning on taking the baby away from you. And I was like, what? Like, thinking to myself, it can't be true from somebody that's supposed to love you, right? Like somebody that you're supposed to share your life with. Like, why would he want to take the baby away from me? And she warned me. But I was like, no, why would they do that? Even though I knew it was wrong to go, I still went hoping that my marriage would work out. That's how I ended up in Hendersonville, Tennessee. That's when my whole life changed. That's when my nightmare happened. On one occasion, Christopher was cutting my oldest daughter's nails, and she didn't want her nails cut. And Christopher, grabbed a hold of her hand, and she pulled her hand away. And my daughter at the time had braces. He backhand Isabel in the face and busted her whole lip open.
Did Sebastian have any friends that he ever brought over to the house? Did you ever have play dates, I guess?
So Sebastian struggles with maintaining friendships with a lot of the children his age because even with the children that are similar, they tend to have different interests. Sebastian gets very
He
like
doesn't.
mind tracked. Like if he's
Yes,
wanting to talk about like Minecraft, then he wants you to be 100% all about the Minecraft. And so a lot of times, like other children will be like, "Yeah, that's cool, but I want to do this," and he'll be. So they wind up getting frustrated with each other, and that's where a lot of his like struggles making friends come into play, is
and personal
because
space. Personal space.
yeah, personal space is also another part of it where he disregards like what we call the personal bubble, just because he just doesn't have that awareness. Like he'll just be right here in your face. um but he's capable of getting along with other kids, I mean, and he does, but typically for shorter periods of time. um At school, he does pretty well with a lot of the kids, but even that, they have to take breaks, because not him, but not just him, but even the other kids, they each have their unique interests and their unique ways of thinking and doing things, and so they get to each other and they have fun, and then something will happen and one or both will get frustrated, and so they got to time out and whatnot. um we have met some kids, especially like because I like to take them out and go do things, especially in like public settings like the festivals and bowling and stuff like that, to get them out and get them. It gives an opportunity to interact and work on those like kind of
Yeah.
social skills and meeting people and being appropriate when meeting people, responding, with appropriate emotions and stances. Like if someone's being polite and says hello to you, to match that energy and not come at a different energy. And we have like a scale that we work on, like what is the problem that's frustrating you? Is it like a 0, 1, 2, 3, and then okay, well, what's your response to that, type thing. So um yes, he has interact and does interact with other children and people, but he struggles to form those like stronger bonds with people.
Hmm. Was he starting to notice girls yet?
I think so, although he's in denial. He don't
Yeah.
want to tell mama that he likes girls.
Yeah. Um, were y'all a part of a church or anything like that?
Yes. So we attend. So hold on.
We attend
Yes, we
church.
yes we do attend church. Now, are we tied to one particular church more so than others? Probably not. But if we go, we tend to frequent the one called Freedom Church. It's up in Gallatin, Tennessee. Yeah, when he was
He,
in church, so the kids area, oh my God. Um,
they've got a phenomenal youth program. He likes to
dance.
dance.
Yeah, dance.
I mean, now gr-
He
granted,
he
what you call dancing, what I call dancing, and what he calls dancing, totally different.
he's definitely got a unique rhythm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Oh,
he loves to dance.
the Nancy Grace today. And then, by the way, is there any reason why y'all didn't go on that show today too?
We were not invited.
We
Oh,
didn't know about it until after.
okay, because that's what I heard. Yes, they said that he did throw tantrums. They did say that. Everything needs to be re-looked at, researched, but everything needs to be spread out more areas, you know. Um,
We've been pushing to spread the search because with the amount of people that we've searched with and had search and all the volunteers and all the law enforcement with the area that they searched for so long, we feel like if he was that close to home, we should have been able to find him. And so we've been searching out farther than just like within the 5 mile radius, but we've been pushing out and we've been searching farther away from the house looking for any signs and posting those signs all the way to the state line and then some in all directions.
People think that y'all have not been doing the flyers. I mean, but y'all have been doing the flyers. Is that correct?
Absolutely, we have.
You absolutely have. Okay.
So let me help some people with some information about things. When it comes to searching, um, flyers, those signs that people have taken pictures and posted on Facebook that say
Mhm.
missing, the yard signs,
Yes,
those came from us.
they
My
came.
mother, my mother is a real estate agent. We've got some friends in the business that can help do things, and my mother was able to get the signs for us. So the signs have been distributed between me and Katie and my mother. We've got some really great friends in the family. We got a great community who we have handed signs out to, and they have gone out and placed them. Flyers, we've had, I can't tell you the amount of support that the community has put together as far as helping us with these flyers. We go to make copies of a flyer somewhere, and we asked them, said, "Look, I just need to know how much it's going to be for this many." And bless everybody that has done this, because a lot of people will only have us pay for 100 of them, but they'll give us 500 of them.
Hmm.
We've got people in the community that when they hear it, they're like, "No, no, no, we're paying for that, not y'all. We are." I'm like, "No, I appreciate it. I really do. If anything, we'd like to give you some. You can pass them out, whatever." So it's been out there. There's billboards across this entire state. Um, I can tell you personally, from Memphis, Tennessee, all the way to Nashville, going down 40, between 240 and I-40, there's at least 7 billboards that were out there posting Sebastian. There was some in Rivergate, some in Madison. There's some out toward Knoxville. I mean, the reach that we have gotten put out there, we've gotten a company that will have in Spanish and in French.
Oh,
The
that needs to be
flyers
done.
are
Hmm.
being pushed all the way up into Canada.
Hmm.
I mean, we're reaching out. We've got great family and friends and blessed people out there. Like I said, if we've never meet you, and I am sorry, I wish we could. I wish we could shake everybody's hand and give everybody a hug, regardless of how you feel or what you think. But the fact that you keep his name in the public view alone, we can't thank you enough.
And I will keep his name and everything out.
Well,
Um,
if you don't mind me, so I don't know how to say this any other way, and please forgive me because it's going to
You're
sound like
fine.
it's
Say
jerk.
it. Say
Well, it's
it.
going to sound very jerkish, but I don't want softball questions. People wanted to ask me the hard questions. By golly, let's get these hard questions out.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry, but I just
Well, have you ever had CPS called on you before?
yes, I've had
Hard.
it. Well, I'll be honest with you. I've had CPS called on me in 2 states,
Hmm.
New Mexico and Tennessee.
Did that include with Sebastian?
Tennessee was Sebastian, yes, ma'am. And in
Okay.
fact, Sebastian here, like I said, I got nothing to hide. So Sebastian went to school one day because we were at the house. He got in trouble. He didn't have a belt on. I was like, "Where's your belt?" And got it. Whack. Kind of got him. So he goes to school and he tells the teacher. They're mandatory reporters. So the teacher reports it.
Mhm.
That afternoon, CPS shows up to the house while we're actually sitting down to eat dinner. Now, mind you, 15-year-old child, he's not real happy because he's in trouble, so he's being punished. So he shows, he makes a report. They come to the house, and the lady who comes to the house is the same lady we've had. She's had a case before. Now, the case that was before was something that didn't even happen, and it's like 3 stories that was shoved into one. And when they finally got it debunked, they were like, "Oh, he got so mixed up in telling one story, it mixed into three, and it caused a commotion." Well, they canceled that out. So the one on me, she shows up, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" It's her again. She's like, "Oh, hey." She goes, "Hey, I already don't." She's like, "Don't tell me anything, but I'm gonna tell you what I know happened." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Blah blah blah." She told me exactly what happened. I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Oh my God." I said, "Yes, ma'am. This is how it's been." Sebastian thought by telling on me, making it sound like I was so horrible
There you go. Okay.
that I was going to get in trouble over something stupid. And I was like, "No, Sebastian, you got punished, man. You got punished." And he was like, but. And I was like, "You got punished." And the lady took him outside. She goes, "Sebastian, just because you get in trouble and you get punished, you need to understand when you go and you say things about people and you lie and you fabricate things and you make it sound worse than what it is, sir, you can get in trouble for that." So that happened, and the lady was like, "I am so sorry." And I said, "No, he's just a child. He's upset. It is what it is. I'm okay with it."
Hmm.
He sat that back down at the dinner table and was like, "See, eat your food." And we
Yeah.
went back, and everything's been fine.
Yeah. Was there a life insurance policy on him?
His father has one on him.
Okay. I'm sorry I have to do
And
it like this.
y'all, for clarification, no, I did not allow him to beat my son with a belt. He did not beat my son with a belt.
Okay. Is Chris still here?
No, can
He
you drop the
fell down.
link again?
He fell down, but yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. When I was talking to Chris earlier, and him and I were messaging, and I asked him about DCS, and he said the only case that DCS has open is
Here he
because
goes.
Sebastian ran away.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry
That's
about that.
true.
Hey, Chris. Josh was going to
Yes,
call in,
ma'am.
and I accidentally punched a 3 instead of a 2 or whatever, and he jumped up here on
That's
panel,
fine.
and he wanted to ask you something, actually. Sorry.
Fire away, man.
Well, so you and I we had messaged earlier on Facebook, and I had asked you about DCS, and you said that there were no other interactions with CPS or DCS except for Sebastian going missing, which I then told you, but that's not mandatory necessarily unless CPS was already involved. So
Now,
you're
hold
not
on.
really being honest.
Wait a minute. You asked me, because I'll read the messages to everybody in God and Country. You asked me if there was an active CPS case on Sebastian. That's what you asked. And I told you, yes, there was. Because the sheriff's department told us that they had to report it because he was missing. That's what you asked. Now, you also started to ask if there was another case. and there was no other case that I know of that's active. That's what you asked.
Yeah, I'm here.
So, like I said, sir, I'm brash. I'm to the point. Be respectful,
Can you hear
and I
me?
will tell you, and I'll be honest, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. I got nothing to hide.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, he said, okay. Can you hear him, Josh?
I can hear him. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said, well, in the messages that I asked that it was pertaining to Sebastian's school, right? Like you just said, and you said no, other than him going missing, no CPS cases.
So you didn't ask. You asked about active cases. That's what you asked about, and I answered your
Mm,
question.
you did. You answered my question.
Josh,
Okay, so I can't hear him.
okay. Can y'all now?
So
I think he
so
said,
he's asked me, and I can't pull it up because if I pull it up, then we lose contact. But he asked me if there was active DCH, CPS, whatever you want to call it, case with Sebastian, and I said yes. He's missing. I was told by the sheriff's department that they had to report it. So yes, there's an active case. Is there anything other than that? No, there's not an
Okay.
active case. So my statement that I told you is true.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, I get it. The active investigation, but yeah, but you did really. Maybe it's just because of text, but you did make it seem like there was no like that this was the first time that they'd ever been involved at all.
No, I didn't insinuate. Now understand something. Words on paper are simply words on paper. Whatever
Fair.
emotions you put behind them is directly proportionate to yourself, not
Oh,
me.
sir, I didn't put any emotion behind it. I'm just
Well,
saying.
what you're saying, you're trying to insinuate on this show.
No, no,
Yes, you did, sir. Yes,
I'm
because
not. You I'm not
just stated,
insinuating.
you just stated that you
Yes.
said that I made it sound like this. No, I didn't. I told you, I gave you a direct statement, gave you your answer, and that
Mhm.
right there is exactly what I'm talking about. Then you called into the show and you said, "No, you're lying." No, I'm not lying. So call a spade, but make sure you're right. Now, to be honest with you, it has nothing to do with finding my son.
You don't think
So
that you don't think? Okay, all right. Well, look, man.
how does CPS have to do with anything finding Sebastian? Because if you're insinuating something,
Well, you said they
come out and
opened up an
say it.
investigation. You said they opened up an investigation. So you tell me what it has to do with him.
Because what did I tell you? That's what you're not listening. The sheriff's department told us that they are required to report it to DCS, CPS, whatever you want to call them. They are required to report it to them.
Hmm.
That answer has yet to change. It hasn't changed any of the slightest.
And okay, so that's the. Okay, I get it. So it's the only
Thank you.
open investigation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the next hard one we got? Fire away.
I'm
okay.
not arguing.
Sebastian know what to do if there was a house fire? Like if it was just you and him, does he know how to handle all that kind of emergency stuff?
We have gone over it with him several times. Talked about like what to do in case of an emergency, calling 911, run into a neighbor's house to ask for help. You know, known friendly neighbors. Um, how to get out, if a door is blocked and that type of thing. So yes, he should, assuming that he, is able to think in a um sorry, I'm losing my word, like in a panic, like if there's an emergency happening. But yes, we have safety plans that we've gone over as far as like getting out of the house in case of fire, and how to get a hold of someone in an emergency.
There was an emergency, would he run out of the house like that barefoot? Or would he throw on his slippers, do you think, because they're by the front door?
Honestly, it could go either way. I know his dad said that he hasn't seen him go outside without shoes on since he was 2. But I, however, have had a different experience with Sebastian where he does go outside without his shoes on. Um, There's been several times where he takes the trash out in his socks, and I'm like, dude, you got to put shoes on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, but I would say honestly, it would just depend, I think, on the situation.
yeah. So you have a padlock? Is that what you said earlier? That you have a padlock on the, like I forget what they're called, but where you put the code in, a code lock.
Yeah, not a padlock.
I meant, yeah, I didn't mean a padlock. I'm sorry. The code where you put the code
Yeah,
in.
with the yeah.
Yeah. So would he turn around if he left and actually put that code in? Do you have to put the code in to lock it back? Is
He
that
locks the Yeah, he locks the door behind himself every time he goes out it.
okay? All right. Is there anybody like any might have had the combination that could have come in like while you were asleep that the dogs would not be alerted to or anything like that?
The only people that would have access to my house have all been interviewed.
And not only that, but if somebody had been by the front door, punched in the code, believe it or not, no, it's not super clear, but you would have seen a shadow or a figure based on, something would have been visible because one of the lights is still visible from that Ring camera from across the street. That has been, like I said, every video, and I've said this through Facebook, everything in the neighborhood. I couldn't talk to you enough positive about my neighborhood because anybody had cameras voluntarily gave up hard drives, flash drives, access to clouds for them. They've let people go in and search their houses multiple times without needing a warrant or a subpoena or anything. They've just openly done it. So I mean, that's why it's so difficult right now.
So they come out about 11 times counting the backyard where they took pictures. Okay, so did they come in and check as well the 11 times, or did they do forensics like a luminol or anything like that?
No.
Just asking.
No. I can answer. No, they haven't done that. We actually, Katie and I sat down at our table in our dining room, and that's basically where everything conducts itself. We sat down with them in the dining room, and I asked them flat out. I was like, "What about fingerprints?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can we not take fingerprints? What can we do? Can we check this? Can we check that?" And they said no, and they explained why fingerprinting would not necessarily be where they would get a hit, was ridges and things like that compromise the fingerprint.
Yeah.
And he goes, despite TV and the movies, that stuff you see is not necessarily true. I was like, okay, well, that's cool. I just, they said, think of anything. Well, we were thinking and asked them, how about this? And how about that? What about this? What about that? And we got shot down.
Yeah. Is there or is there not a couch in front of the back door?
No, there is a couch in front of a door.
In front of a door.
Is there an exit out the back of the house? Yes. That's unobscured from anything? Yes.
Okay, but what I'm asking is, how did you know that he went specifically out the front door? What made you think that?
We presume that he left out the front door. We never know 100%, obviously, but we presume based off of process of elimination, going over it with law enforcement, going over the house, where things are, how things are, Sebastian's routine, and the fact that that's the door that he always uses or prefers to use, because I won't say 100% of the time he does come in with me through another door, but that's the door Sebastian prominently uses. That's the one that if he were going to sneak out of the house or leave the house for whatever reason, that's the most reasonable door that he would have left out of. Any of the others would have made noise or not
Or would
been
not have been locked.
Mm-hmm.
So the back door would not lock
from the outside like the front. No, you'd have to had a key.
So we one, I'm not going to describe every door lock in our house to
No, I
y'all. First,
understand that.
that's a safety thing.
Yeah, I
But
understand that. Don't do that.
yeah, but what I can say is there's only two doors in the house that he could have gone out where he could have locked
From the
on his
outside.
own from the outside. And the one he wouldn't have gone out because of how much noise it makes. Everybody would have, plus it would have been seen on camera. Let's put it that way. I mean, that it
Yeah.
would have been seen on camera. So by suspicion or reasonable elimination of all these doors, it's front door.
Okay. And there was no windows unlocked or anything like that.
Yeah, with the
Yes, yeah,
screens intact and things like that.
yeah. Nothing exterior of the building of our house has been altered. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why it was like, oh, not only that, but for him to go out the window, so to speak, he would have landed in the flower bed and, barefooted. Yeah, we'd have heard something because he had landed on it and screamed.
Yeah. 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 When y'all were out to eat Sunday, on that day, like when he went out to eat.
His
And
tennis
let's go ahead.
his his tennis shoes, jeans, and a black t-shirt with Grogu on the front.
Okay. And and then he changed before he went to bed into the black.
The black sweatpants with the white stripes down the side and a long sleeve black shirt,
That I think
which was
what
originally listed on the missing poster as a sweatshirt, and everybody mistaken it for a hoodie. And even Seth said himself that we both were trying to get that corrected because
Yep.
when they said sweatshirt, everybody assumed it meant hoodie, not long sleeve black shirt.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
another thing, they're not sweatpants. So some of these young cats out there probably don't understand where I'm fixing to go with this. But
Why
us
call them
older folks,
sweatpants?
go back and think of the 1980s Adidas pants where you had
Mhm.
the white stripes down the side, almost like a tearaway style pants. That is what the pants were. They weren't sweatpants.
Exactly.
That's why I'm like, older folks will know. These younger kids, I don't know if they'll know or not.
I
Exactly.
just call them sweatpants, but
Well, there's a difference.
Okay. So,
No, no, I gave you my word, and I told you I'll
will you
stick to
be?
my word.
Yeah, can I ask? Then I'll ask you now before I go to theirs, before I forget.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
What in the world is this on your arm on day 8, the interview? It's a scratch or a bite mark?
Left arm or right arm?
Oh, I don't know. It's the one where you were in the green shirt. Um, and I think it was the right arm.
So right arm slightly above the elbow.
Or
If I'm guessing.
I think it was right below, if I'm not mistaken.
So I've got two spots on one on my hand, and I got
Um,
one on my closer to my elbow. They're two spots. We have little Morkies, and we have one that's very playful. We have one that's not so playful. And I like to roughhouse with my little Morkies, and I put my hand down, and they chase it around, and I don't stop, and I let them nibble, and I've been dumb enough, and I've gotten scratched by the bigger one.
they got their
So,
claws clipped and not grinded, so they're rough right now.
yeah, but I thought you hadn't been home for almost a month, or all month. I thought it looked like fresh scratch. I'm just
so
saying.
when I'm in a green shirt,
Yeah,
okay,
you were talking
was that
to Fox 17.
okay?
Okay.
Fox 17. I had already been home, so I got home February 26th.
Oh,
That
so that
can be
was a new
released because
scratch.
that's when I came home.
Yeah, you're saying it was a new scratch then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that's why I was like, no, I came home February 26th. We did the interview, and those were scratches that are fresh. Because
okay.
the day I came home, I was actually still wearing my work clothes. And believe it or not, that is the first time I've heard that question. So thank you. I had not heard that before.
Okay.
And I believe I was wearing it's like a mint colored button up shirt, I think.
You were.
Yep, there you go.
Yep. You thought they all been asked, didn't you?
Yeah, just about. I mean, I've told everybody on Facebook, and I said, look, everybody's been nasty and all this, and like, look, I got no problem. I'll answer your questions. Just fire them away. And I have asked, like, keep in mind, there's like three of us and thousands of y'all, so we're trying to get to them. But give me a good one.
Did you ever use a belt on him?
Have I ever used a belt on Sebastian? Yes.
Okay.
Outside of his clothes, on his buttocks.
Okay. Okay. Have you ever had domestic violence called on you when Sebastian was there?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I actually don't have any domestic violence in my history. Period.
Okay. He says Sebastian's autism. Does he have a violent outburst? If so, what typically triggers the outburst?
I wish I could show y'all this in person. All right. Does he have, when he was younger, he probably had some pretty nasty ones. As he's gotten older, between his mama, me, and his dad, and other family members, trying to get him to, like, look, you need to focus on this. Stop doing, he, ball your fist up, put them down to your side, like in a very aggressive manner, like you're pushing down, and stomp with one foot. Okay? He gets like that when he's throwing his tantrums. And then he brings his hands up in like the military knife hand is what they call it. All four fingers and thumbs pointing outward. And he's like moving his hands up and down, kind of like he's making a point, kind of. That's to the extent of his violent outbreak. But other than that, no.
Am I understanding this? You hit him with a belt because he didn't have a belt?
No.
No.
Okay.
No. So the question about hitting him on the outside of his clothes, on his butt with a belt, that was something that he got in trouble for because he lied to us and he got one lick.
How do you think it's possible that Katie and Sebastian, and Katie, and I can ask you too, you got a voice. Can I ask you why Chris is always speaking for you? I'm just wondering.
Fire away, babe. Go ahead.
People want to know this. If you're not there, how can you answer all the questions?
So if you notice, there's certain questions that you're asking I'm not saying anything about.
I know.
So as soon as you start talking about Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So
I don't say nothing. Saturday, I don't say nothing. But anything after that, from the 6th, from midnight to 6,
okay,
being on the phone with her prior to, yeah. I can answer those questions.
Okay.
And just so, I've told somebody this before. My wife has popped off to somebody on Facebook about it. As nasty as some folks have been, my job as a husband is to protect my wife, my kids at all costs. And I will stand in front of them, beside them, wherever they want to be, and I take all the hard hits. I'm tired of people dragging her through the mud. I'm tired of seeing the stuff that they say about her. Say it to me. I'm okay with it. Say it to me. Leave them alone. Be nice, be respectful, be courteous, and think about a woman whose heart's broken because her son is missing. If everybody would just take a step back for 1 second, go look at your kids and realize you got a kid. Your kid's at your house right now that you can walk up to. They may be in the bed sleeping, but you can walk up to them, give them big old hugs and kisses, tell them good night, and enjoy the moments. Right now, there's 3 parents in this world. Well, more than 3, but right now for this situation, there's 3 parents that cannot do that. So forgive me for standing up and being my wife's rock and foundation, because that's what a marriage is. That's my job. But we do love all of y'all. Doesn't matter. We still love you. Babe, if you want to answer. Go for it.
No, I don't understand why it's a problem that my husband helps talk. I mean, I get that y'all want to hear my voice more, but honestly, half the time it's because I'm crying or I'm honestly, I don't have words to explain what I am anymore.
Just might as well ask it.
No, and we appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, thank you.
Did y'all, what did y'all like to do together as a family when Chris was in town and y'all were all together? Like, what was your thing?
Oh, we do all sorts of stuff. He loves Top Golf, so we like to take him there.
Hmm.
Um, he Dave and Buster's because games.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
we've got a few really good parks in the area that he still enjoys going and playing in.
done some
Um,
hiking.
we do hiking. We go bowling. Um, we have in the summer a family member with a pool, so he absolutely, utterly loves going over there. And we do game nights. He loves playing cards. Um, Uno is currently his favorite game,
Could he swim?
like a
Like a
fish.
fish.
Mhm. What was his favorite food?
Well, that
Depends on
depends
what
on which day
day.
of the week.
What day of the week?
Yeah.
He changes his favorite food probably every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Chocolate milk has been a long time runner.
tofu. Believe it or not,
Mhm.
tofu. He's
Not
not. He's not a huge steak eater, but
not
steamed tofu.
fried. Not
Mhm.
fried and no sauce, just plain steamed tofu and sushi. The boy loves
Oh yeah.
sushi.
Yep.
He loves it.
Did y'all ever take him to the Japanese places where they made that in front?
Shoguns where they cook in front of you.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
hibachis. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
likes it, but he doesn't at the same time because it's so loud and clanky.
Yeah.
And they
So
use a
it's like
lot of the teriyaki style sauce.
Yeah.
We when we get his, we kind of have to ask like, hey, can y'all scoot some over? He doesn't like condiments that much. He really doesn't.
Chris, what time did you get home on Monday? Do you remember?
I want to say it was. Well, hold on. Let's see here. One something. One something. I think.
And then did you have to go back up there and get your camper? I mean, is that what you had to y'all had to go back and get that? Drive it back
Yes.
or
No. 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 It's a fifth wheel. It's a fifth wheel.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Sorry. I couldn't tell. Somebody was just
No.
putting it.
No. No. So there's a couple things that because of this whole situation, I hope families never endure. Um, Without going into great details, I almost lost my job. Yes, over this, very much. Yeah. Hmm. Um, and because of that, I was like, well, so I got permission, and I say I got permission. I asked law enforcement, said, hey, I need to go down, go get my fifth wheel, and I need to bring it home
Mm-hmm.
because right now, you know, and they said, okay. So we told them what day we were going, and we went down there. We weren't even down there, I don't know, 24 hours maybe. I think we were down there maybe 17 hours, long enough to get down there. I finished packing everything up. And oh, I say she didn't go. I was down there long enough to pack everything up. I spent the night in my trailer, hooked up the next morning, and came home. Things have worked out. I will be returning to work.
Why the three-way call?
So, well, I'll
because
give
I
you,
was
yeah, okay.
hysterical and screaming and crying and frantic. And so he told me to mute my phone, and he's the one that actually called because at that point I couldn't even make words anymore.
So, not only that, but if folks know the area, when you call 911, you go to a central dispatching unit. You don't actually go to your local PD unit. You go to a hub on a cell phone. When you tell them where you're at, then they redirect you to the local PD. We don't live inside city limits, so the local PD is they're not responding. It's not their jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to call the sheriff's office. So I called directly to the sheriff's office because I know what was going to happen. Bypass it, call them. And then within 10 minutes of that phone call, they were at the house. And when they were at the house, they were at the house in full force.
How many came? Do y'all remember? Was it a lot? Or
Have you
ton.
you've seen the aerial shot of the subdivision, correct?
yes.
Okay, so from our house, go all the way back down to Stafford to that stop sign where Kellen and Stafford meet. Then line cop cars all the way down Kellen out to Long Hollow Road. That's how many cops came.
What reason? Like y'all didn't go to the vigil, the one by the high school?
Yes,
Seriously?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why?
So security reasons, and this is what I'm fixing to tell you is going to spark a whole bunch of stuff in the comments, and I'm not afraid to answer any of this. The young lady who started to organize this vigil never even contacted us. Not one time has any of these vigils taken place as somebody tried to organize them with us as the parents. I think the only one that's been somewhat organized with a parent is the one that was done in Clarksville with Seth. Other than that, the one that was supposed to be out in front of my house was a security issue. My neighborhood said we don't want it here because our roads don't have sidewalks. We don't have easements. Technically, you're not even supposed to park on the street.
Yeah.
We found out about it, and then we found out that they were spreading it all over basically the county and state, and there was like tons and tons of people saying they were going to come. And there's zero parking here. It's not big
And
gathering spot. So we asked for them to move it to the school, which is literally like half a mile from my house, if that,
it's not even that. It's
and
like a quarter mile
can
down the street.
accommodate all of the people.
Not
Yeah.
only that, but some of the people, like some of the comments and the stuff that's being said,
I
and
know.
if you're in
I'm
our
reading
shoes,
now. I'm
it
trying
could
to
be it could be a security reasons because if somebody shows up acting crazy, that's not kosher. One, it's not coming in our subdivision. I don't want it in front of my house. I don't need thousands of people in front of my house.
Katie, was you still married to Seth when you and Chris met?
No. So, I know he's insinuating that I cheated, and I did not. Seth and I had been separated for, I think, about 2 years and change when I met Christopher.
Yeah.
And we didn't get married until nearly 3 years after my divorce. So, no, I was not cheating and running around.
That there is someone in the neighborhood that you have been seeing. Is that any truth to that?
No.
Okay. And there was nobody else in the house that night with you?
Just me and my son.
Can you tell me more about that 3-hour phone call? I mean, is that normal, something normal that y'all did every night?
Yeah.
Or
So my husband works out of town, as y'all all know, and yes, it is regular that we talk every evening or during all throughout the day. We call each other here and there. We chat off and on. That's how we're involved, and we're our version of spending time with each other because on a different situation where both people come home from work at a normal time, you sit down, you have dinner, you spend time with your spouse, and it's hours of time that you're spending with them. We don't have that physically when we're separated by work. So um we spend it on the phone. We talk while we're having dinner, and we most of the time the phone's on speaker and Sebastian talks to him and whatnot. But that's the way that we are still spending time and talking about our day. And then that's normal for some people. Not everybody wants to, spend that much time with their spouse, but I enjoy being around my spouse and not my husband. And, and I enjoy that he's a part of my life and a
yeah.
part of, the family. And for us, that is our normal, albeit some other people, may not
Yeah.
be the same way. You know, not everybody wants to be around somebody all the time, but sometimes, you know, just
But
being on the phone, you're just kind of sort of spending time together. No,
being on the phone?
no, because I'm not on the phone during all of that time. I'm not on the phone every minute of the day with him. I'm on the phone in the evenings after bedtime until I go to sleep, that type of thing. I spend time with my son from the time I get home until the time he goes to bed.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of people just find weird
Well,
and
and a lot of people don't have long distance marriages either, so I'm sure they could. But if they were in this situation, then, you know, maybe they would have a different opinion or point of view. But, you know, I don't think it's weird to spend time with your spouse on a regular basis.
yeah. And what about and Chris, do you like are you work you're off nights or do you mind telling do you work night shift or is it days or I mean, do you mind is that okay to ask or
Yeah, no, that's fine to ask. So, in my line of work, you really don't have, I would say, a normal set schedule. I'm going to give you an example. So, helping a guy out right now till I go back, I'm filling in for a guy. His
yeah.
shift starts at noon and doesn't get off until midnight tonight. That's not your normal shift, you know. So it kind of depends. Some some crane operators depends what's going on the job site determines on like the hours because if you're doing a concrete pour, um, I mean you may be up there for 18, 24 hours. I mean it
And
just
for the
kind of
record,
depends.
because a whole bunch of people just snapped back at me because I did say that I talk to my husband on the phone when I eat dinner, and I do. And I also said not every single day. Most of the time, we talk from bedtime until I go to bed or one of us falls asleep. But I also said that he interacts with Sebastian as well because he does.
Why did Sebastian wear pull-ups at your house?
So Sebastian wore pull-ups because, or when specifically, when he was having his regression, when he was having issues with wetting the bed or wetting his pants, he had issues where he would wet himself at school, and then occasionally would wet himself at night. Now I know that Seth went and said that that never happened at his house, but I do know that it did. Um, of at least a few occasions that I know of. Um, but that's not the point. The point is that he did go in and out of pull-ups based on when he needed them. So if he was during a regression phase, he would go into the pull-ups, and then once he, you know, got back on track and he was not having wedding issues at school and or home, he would go back into, you know, regular underwear. Um, and that unfortunately is just something that has been happening for, you know, ever.
Right.
Sebastian was late to potty train and has had issues going back and forth with it basically his whole life.
About the GoFundMe. Why are you so mad about that, Chris?
So initially, I forgot what day it was. Myself, Katie, and Seth were in my house, and I had brought up the question. I said, "Hey, you know, should we start a GoFundMe page to start trying to raise money to add help to this, however we can?" And the police said, "Hey, no, I don't recommend doing that because then if you do that, it looks like you're trying to do this for profit." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." So we all three had an agreement. We weren't doing this. And next thing you know, now there's the GoFundMe page up there.
Why don't y'all just start your own GoFundMe page? I mean, it's like there's no sense in arguing over it, really. I mean,
So all of this has kind of stemmed because you got a family member who wants to go out there and blast some family matters to the public. That's where it all stems from. Like I said, this is not family problems. This isn't about family matters being public. It's about Sebastian. And we've got some family members that aren't necessarily kosher about everything right now, and they're upset. Their emotions are, I got it. Everybody's been at one point hot headed, you know. If somebody tells me they're not, that's a lie. Everybody's been a hothead at some point. I mean, we got a missing kid, and that's a problem.
Right now, what would you say to him? Or, and if somebody had him, what would you say to them?
I would say to Sebastian that we love you, baby. Bubba, we're gonna find you. We're gonna bring you home. And I would say to somebody that has my son that they better let him go and they better come out because we're gonna come and we're gonna find him. We're not gonna stop and we're gonna bring an army with us. An army of support of people that are helping to look and um son, I love you.
Katie, if you could take anything back about that day, about Sunday, and redo anything about Sunday, what would it be?
I'd have slept outside that boy's door. I say it like that and I promise I'm not laughing. I would have I don't know. I would have made sure to check him 100 times. You know, they get older and you think that they're okay and that they're good and you don't check as much throughout the night like when you get up. You know, when he was little, if I woke up, I'd check on him. You know, I was always looking at him, and as he got older and he didn't need that as much anymore and I took that for granted, I'd give anything to be able to hug my baby again.
Explain to me why you keep making comments about what people think of you, Chris. Why not focus on searching for Sebastian?
Well, I do focus on looking for Sebastian. But at the same time, when I said I'd answer questions and people want to put questions up there and then you want to put your comments and your 2 cents in with a question, you're going to get an answer.
So they want to know, did he want to get away from the house because of the discipline?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So Sebastian is not afraid. He runs up to me, he gives me a big old hug, says I love you, says I miss you. When I'm out of town, his mom, he'll look at his mom and say, hey, when's Mr. Chris coming home? Can we call him? Things like that. I mean, discipline is discipline. There's a difference in discipline a child and beyond discipline a child. You know, I can tell you from personal experience, I know the difference between both. And I vowed I would never in my life do that to a child.
They want to know, okay, so he's already answered that one. He's looked for, they've put out flyers, and he's told a while ago that the signs that you see in the yard, he said that that come from his family.
Yes.
Yeah, and
if people are interested in purchasing them or trying to get some ordered and sent to them, find me on Facebook, send me your just hit me up, and I will send you the point of contact, and you guys can reach out to him and work it out.
in fact, actually, yeah, I would like to get that information, and I will get with you to get that about the
Okay.
signs or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, guys, so this is part two. You saw JLR part two on April 7th, 2024. He does the 3 parts, and it's taking different routes from Texas Roadhouse to the Proudfoots. So the first one you saw when Chris was talking about how his mother was the one that set up the signs and has a connection for the signs and all of that. So this is the second route, best route that you can take from Texas Roadhouse to the Proudfoots. And, as you can see, it's the same yard signs. So basically, there are no other yard signs that you can see. All of those poles, there's no missing posters attached to the poles, trees. I mean, these are all missed opportunities right here through here. I would be out there just posting them. I wouldn't ask anybody. Political signs and everything are fair game. I looked at Tennessee law. There's nothing that says that you can't put out signs, and there's a bunch of signs for political reasons and things like that. I even zoomed in
tried to really look really hard to see which ones were out, and there's nothing. And what really bothers me is that nothing in his neighborhood. I mean, that it should be plastered with Sebastian's missing posters and just pictures, and I just don't know. So in this, I've highlighted any of the signs as well, except for the ones on the Proudfoot property. I don't really count that because they should have one out there. So March 29th, 2024, the interview with Nina Gomez with Trevor at Trev Time. Definitely go check him out. He is a sweetheart. Oh, there goes a lawn sign. And that's the same one that's at the school right near the Proudfoots. Okay, so sorry, guys. So back with Nina, she does have 2 children. At the time, her children were 3 and 7, a little boy that was 3 and her daughter that was 7. Now, Nina's story is very believable to me. And the reason why it's so believable is because when she tells her story, she even tells the parts that don't put her in a positive light. Her accounts are raw and what I believe to be very genuine. Her facial expressions show the excruciating pain that she is recalling and retelling. It's the pain of a woman who is stuck in the cycle of coercive control and, in my humble opinion, of narcissistic abuse. So she recounts Christopher, or Chris, Mr. Chris, spanking her son really hard, and he was only 3 years old at that time, telling him to man up. It doesn't seem like Chris knows the difference between a baby, a toddler, a 3-year-old versus a child. Nina recalls being tired of Chris putting her children, both of them, in the corner all the time. He would want them to stand there all the time, she said, and he wanted her to get an abortion with Faith. And he also, in my opinion, abused her during her pregnancy. She said that she knew that he was upset about her keeping Faith. She saw a lot of things that weren't right about him, and I agree, there are a lot of things that aren't right about him. He made her feel like dirt when she was pregnant. He treated her like dirt. He played games with her, and he went back and forth giving her really weird reasons that he didn't want to have the baby because she might die, or the baby might die. Really weird. And she eventually had Faith on her own, which, of course, Chris isn't going to admit to that or say anything like that. And apparently he was blowing up the hospital phone and calling all the nurses when they're trying to attend to his wife who is having a baby. Kind of weird that he said that she might die, and yet he's distracting the medical professionals from doing their job. And like any good narcissist would, he was telling them how to do their job and then rage at them when they wouldn't do exactly what he wants them to do. Chris states in the interview that he never had CPS called on him, but he fails to remember when they were called on him when Faith was being born and after Faith and her mother were recovering from the birth. Because he was raising his voice and yelling at her and treating her like shit after she gave birth to his daughter, Faith, their daughter, Faith. And Chris also states that he has no history of domestic violence. Like many abusers, they do not have a quote-unquote history detailing the horrors that they inflicted on their families. Because it happens behind closed doors. And victims like Nina, who are so broken down and hurt and embarrassed and sick of having to ask for help from their family and friends, often isolate themselves as well, leaving them with no one. The fact that he didn't have anything on paper is upsetting, and I really wish, and I know Nina does too, but she would have called the police on him when he busted her daughter's lip open. There is often no proof, only a traumatic account of events that is not only written all over her face, but is reflected in every movement in her body. What really upsets me and baffles me about Chris is when he shows zero remorse for the way he treated Sebastian before he went missing. This too is reflected in Chris's body movements, his tone, and his facial expressions. He's proud of himself. He's bragging about the way that he treated Sebastian, a young man who struggles with social and emotional issues, and he brags about punishing him. Chris shows no emotion. He doesn't cry. He doesn't say, I was only trying to teach Sebastian how to clean up after himself. He says it in a very angry tone, an overly bossy and almost dictator type fashion. And it's like, chill out, Gestapo. I'm no expert. I don't have a psychology degree, but I was married to a narcissist. During my divorce, we both took psychological evaluations, and my daughter's father came back as having narcissistic personality disorder along with antisocial personality disorder. And the way that Chris portrays himself, his behaviors, and the punishment methods that he has had to flex on Sebastian are very similar to what my ex-husband tried to inflict on my daughter. And whether Katie wants to admit it or not, Chris already did that for her when he said that she talked him out of throwing out Sebastian's belongings. So trust me when I say I'm sure that she either had to beg, plead, or fight with him not to inflict the punishments that he saw fit. And let's not forget, Chris said it would be so beautiful if everyone was on the same page as him with the punishments. Well, thank God that there weren't. And we all know that Seth found out about this on a podcast. So, and I'm not sure which podcast, but we do know that he wasn't on the same page. He probably wasn't even the same book. Now, Katie talks about Sebastian, and because of his diagnoses, Sebastian has trouble socially. It's hard for him to make friends because there are certain interests that he is very involved in, and he doesn't like to deviate from his routine. And on the flip side of that, any of the other children who are also on the spectrum that he may pal around with too have their own unique interest. And so it can be very difficult for them to figure out what they are going to be doing for the day if they get together to hang out. So, for example, if he wants to talk about Minecraft, there's no getting him off of that subject because he's very involved and he really enjoys it. And he does want to share his interests with other people. He just doesn't understand that sometimes other people get to have their turn. And that just comes along with being on the spectrum. And if his friend is over and he wants to play a different game, then this can create some conflict. So it's very typical, or shall we say, atypical. I can really relate to what Katie is saying, and for the first time, she's really resonating with me as a mother who cares deeply about her child who has unique diagnoses, and he's high functioning autistic, but then he also has the chromosomal deletion syndrome. You can tell that she's put in a lot of thought and she has tried to have play dates, and this does happen with children. It's very common, like I said, or people with autism. They have their own unique interests and ways of doing things. Their routines are everything, and it makes them feel safe. It's comforting having the same routine, and it can be very frustrating and upsetting when the routine is disrupted. So Katie talks about Sebastian loving to swim and what kind of food he likes to eat, and you could hear in her voice that she does love her son. When she describes Sebastian going out to eat at a hibachi restaurant, she said that he really doesn't enjoy it as much as everyone else may because it's overstimulating to him. For a person with autism, certain stimuli is comforting and others can be like nails on a chalkboard. It sounds like Sebastian didn't like the clinging of the kitchen utensils and quite possibly how loud it gets in a restaurant like that. Now, in this interview, Smiley really gets them to open up and talk about Sebastian, even though Chris continuously brings it back to himself. And Katie is always there to come to Chris's defense. Again, I go back to the coercive control, and it comes with the territory of being in an abusive relationship with a man like Chris. You are always sticking up for him and making excuses for him. And I know that there's men out there that have had to deal with women that are just like this as well. And it's really exhausting. But Katie doesn't seem like she bats an eyelash, and she goes on right in for the kill and defends Chris full force, and she never wavers. And that's what really worries me about Katie, is her unwavering support of Chris, who doesn't seem very supportive of Katie or her son, to be honest with you. Other than the fact that she was the last person with Sebastian, it really makes me worry about her involvement. And just when you think Chris can't say anything more rude or mean or demeaning about Sebastian, he starts mocking and making fun of the way Sebastian dances. Something that Sebastian really enjoys, and Chris can't wait to make fun of him for it. The way he dances, the way he perceives music, his rhythm, all of it. And it just makes me really mad. We can't all be perfect like Mr. Chris. Chris's mother having properties, and she is a real estate agent, so I believe she has some properties, and Chris talks about the church in Gallatin, Tennessee, and I do believe that he has family in Gallatin, Tennessee. I really think that there is something behind this. He does have the family that lives up in that area, and there's the Proudfoots and the Bowersocks. So his parents are divorced and remarried. Any properties that his mother or any of his family members do have, I really believe they need to be checked out. They need to be searched thoroughly. And all I can hope and pray for is that Sebastian is there, and they've been giving him food and making things as normal as possible for his routine, and maybe they were just keeping him from Seth. But then there's also the alternative, which I'm not ready to even speak about. But I do think that those properties need to be looked at, most definitely. One last thing I want to leave you with is a question that keeps rolling over and over and over in my mind. Again, why won't Katie look for her son? Why is she lying about the yard signs, about putting up the flyers? There's zero in her neighborhood except for one lonely little yard sign in their yard. Why is she not looking for her son? And why did she feel so comfortable leaving the home that he went missing from? Thank you all so much for joining me on part 2 of Smiley's impromptu interview. Definitely check out part 1 if you haven't. And I can't wait to discuss part 3 with all of you. Lady Justice is blind, but we are not. Lady Justice listens carefully, and so should we. This is Lady Freedom. I hope you enjoy my raw narratives. Talk to you soon. And here's Sebastian, a live version of Sebastian.
Green tea.
You're so goofy.
He's typically a very